Hello there again. It's me, Zikri Khalil, your usual host for the It Matters show, where we talk about everything that matters in reality, in life, and of course during this epidemic or pandemic, as you want to say, however you want to put it. Again, a lot of things that we can discuss that really touches on all the life points that all of us are going through right now. Now, today we have a guest that represents an organization different from the other guests that we've had. The main focus is about looking at our environment. And last week I touched on a lot of related to World Refugee Day. But this week we have somebody who's actually an international recognized expert when it comes to wetland and water resource management for the past 30 years. So he's here with us. And I would like to bring him on stage with us, Mr. Faizal Parish. How are you, Faizal?
Very well, thank you, Victory.
Likewise, thank you for being part of this show where we discuss everything that really matters in our daily livelihoods. I just want to start off by saying, for the past 30 years, I believe you've been here for 30 years. Is this where you started your career by any chance, sir?
I came here to Malaysia for a week in 1983, and I'm still here. So it's been 38 years since I've been living in Malaysia.
Wow. Okay. Definitely much more. Well, definitely you're not just a veteran, but perhaps the legacy that you have brought here. I would say it's a blessing to the environment issues, because as I understood, the organization that you're with, which is Global Environment Center, focused a lot on working with environmental issues. And I would say not many young people would understand and know the modus operandi of this operation. Perhaps you could share a bit. How did this started off out of all places in Malaysia?
I was already working in Malaysia from 1983 with Wetlands International at the time. We were doing more surveys and research on wetlands. But in 1997-98, we had the massive issue of fires and transboundary haze. We had millions of hectares of peatlands, particularly in Indonesia, but also other ASEAN countries, were burning during a massive drought. And the smoke cloud was covering about 10 million square kilometers across Southeast Asia for about 6 months. Those of you who are around at that time know how difficult it was to breathe or survive. And at the same time, was in the process of establishing a new organization, Global Environment Center, bringing together various colleagues and partners been working with for many years. And we took the issue of the fire and haze as one of the critical startup moments and incentives to focus on and try to address it. At the time, everyone was arguing, how do we solve such a problem? And the people in Malaysia were complaining, the smoke is everywhere, we have to sue the other countries where the smoke's coming from. So the people blamed the government. The government in turn said, no, it's the plantation companies or the plantation companies from Malaysia who's behind it all. Then the plantation companies said, no, it's the local communities. The local communities are the one burning. And then the local community don't have a voice to respond. So we took that as a challenge, rather than that everyone was blaming one another and no one wanted to solve the problem. Just pass the blame and to say, I'm not responsible, it's someone else. And so this was the starting moment for Global Environment Center. And we said, let's not play the blame game. Let's try to build this partnership for environment. And whether your local community, your private sector, government, you're all affected by this issue. So let's try to bring everyone together. And that was really one of the initial focuses or impetuses for our work. And we were able to quite successfully reach out to these different stakeholders. So over the next few years, we were able to work with the governments of the region. And in fact, by 2003, get an ASEAN framework, an ASEAN Peatland Management Initiative adopted by all 10 ASEAN member states to realize that to solve the haze problem, everyone got to work on sustainable peatland management. Firefighting doesn't work in peatland, we have to solve the problem at the root cause, stop the fires happening. And then we started working with the private sector through the framework of Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, working with the pulp and paper sector, bringing them into the picture, engaging them, bringing them together with the governments. We had meetings in 2012, 2013, and showing the government that actually the private sector had a common point of view. They also don't want the fire and haze. They want to solve the issue. And then we've worked maybe for the last 15 years with a lot of communities living in and around the peatland areas in all the ASEAN member states, and showing that the community actually are the long-term stewards of these ecosystems. And in 90% of the cases, they're not the one responsible for the vulnerability of the system. It's the large-scale development, drainage, whether government projects, roads, highway, pipeline, plantations, which are degrading the habitat and removing the natural food and resources of the local community. So in the desperation, they are doing some small-scale land clearing, spreading into the area. But we've really tried to have a paradigm shift in thinking and get everyone working together. And I would say the last 10 years, we're getting everyone back on track. We brought the community to present to the ministers of ASEAN member countries. We got the ministers to recognize that community also is a key partner and they can play the responsible role, but they need the empowerment enabling from the government side. And I think this was one of our key areas where we have worked and brought together coalition of government, private sector, community, and the public to try to resolve this haze issue. And although there have been occasions in the last 5 years, most notably during the drought in 2015, where we still had haze problem, the scale was not as big as earlier when we first started. And that's been possible to move forward because of this way of working. And just an hour or two ago, we just finished the 6th meeting of the ASEAN task force meeting on peatlands, bringing all the 10 ASEAN members together and sharing the updates. And really, all of the countries in ASEAN have made great strides over the last 20 years in changing the attitude, in looking at integrated management. Indonesia in particular has really transformed its management, has re-wetted and improved water management on 3.6 million hectares of peatland, has engaged the private sector across millions of hectares of land, and more than 500 community groups are now engaged in the peatland management issues. So this has totally transformed the way of working on peatlands. We still have further way to go. We have to rehabilitate back some of those degraded sites so they won't burn in future. We need to look at better protecting the peat remnants that we have, and we need to transfer these models from working on peat to other systems like mangroves or rivers and other areas where there's multiple stakeholders and there's conflict between them.
Now, I'm going to ask a bit more about the mangroves because a lot of the public, I would say, and I can speak on behalf of the young generation here who only know the common denominator or the common issues that they would know, which is forestation, river issues, plastic in the sea, the very common stuff. But about mangroves, how much of a problem is this for us to really understand what you guys are doing with this? I mean, how is it an issue in the first place that would somewhat directly or indirectly impact us in the long term? I would like to hear more on that, actually.
So mangroves are quite a unique forest system which lives between the land and the sea. So the mangrove trees are quite unique type of tree. They're able to grow in salt water, different to other trees. And what they have done, naturally over millions of years, they have evolved. And for those who don't know, Malaysia is the top country in the world for diversity of mangroves. Mangroves evolved here millions of years ago, and from Malaysia spread out across the world. So we have the highest diversity of species anywhere else on the planet. And those species are uniquely adapted to this coastal environment. And they sit between the sea and the land, and they protect the coast from storms and erosion. And within the mangrove itself is highly productive. The leaves generated a lot, and then this fall down to the mud into the sea and provide the start of the food chain. So if there's anyone out there that likes to eat seafood, if there's no mangrove, there's no seafood, because 75% of all the seafood, the prawns, the fish, and everything that we eat, their nursery stage is in the mangrove area. The juveniles are sheltering in the mangrove, and much of the food supply for the adults and the growing fish and prawns come from the mangrove. So if we lose the mangrove, we lose our coastal fishery. The mangroves also provide a major barrier against erosion, and almost 1/3 of Malaysia's coastline is facing severe erosion, and it's getting worse. With climate change, we have the sea level rising, we have stronger storms, we have more waves and degradation of the coast. We saw that clearly in 2004 also, when we had the Boxing Day tsunami on 26th of December 2004, and the wave from the tsunami, the tidal wave came in and destroyed the villages in the northern part of the peninsula, in Penang and in Kedah. But those areas where the mangrove was intact were much better protected, because the mangrove act as a buffer, as a protection against it. And that was one of the times, 27th of December 2004, immediately after the tsunami, we started a call in Malaysia for the government to better protect mangroves. And fortunately, the government at the time did set up a special committee in the next year, in 2005, and started a program which has run the last 15 years to encourage protection of mangrove. But the government initially was focusing on government and contractors planting mangrove. We promoted and prioritized getting the community involved, because they're the one living there. They're the one dependent on fishery resource. They're the one whose house will be destroyed when the mangroves and the coast is washed away. So we've got coastal communities throughout Malaysia engaged in mangrove protection, and they're now been recognized. Last year we had an award from the ministry as a role model for community engagement in mangrove protection. And wow, many of those groups we are using to train other groups, and they're developing clear improvement in livelihood, better fishery in the areas which have been restored. So together they have planted maybe 200,000 or 300,000 mangrove trees along the coast in vulnerable area. And then they've been the guardians, the protector, the eyes and ears, looking out for anyone trying to clear and degrade the mangrove, raising protests. And so I think thousands of hectares have been protected. And I think for those of you that like seafood, if you want to continue having seafood, or if you live near the coast and you don't want your house washed away, please support the protection and rehabilitation of mangrove area. And even those not into seafood, if you love durians, and I don't think you can be Malaysian without loving durians.
Absolutely.
The mangroves disappear, the durian harvest collapses, because, as you may know or may not, all durians in Malaysia are pollinated by bats, not by bees, by bats. Wow. And since the durian harvest is flowers only twice a year, the bat cannot survive on only two months of food from the durian flowers. So where do they survive the rest of the year? They go to the mangrove. The mangrove flowers most of the year round, and there are special trees in the mangrove with flowers specially adapted for bats to feed on them, and they keep the bats alive for the year so that they can pollinate the durians. So when in Johor, near Muar, they cleared all the coastal mangrove for reclamation, all the durian harvest near there failed for the next few years. So another important reason for us Malaysians, keep the mangrove for the durians.
Faizal, all of this that you have shared, literally mind blowing. You know, I'm a Malaysian. I had no clue how deep this problem can be if we don't really take this more seriously now. And this is just mangroves. I'm not talking about our forest or our river. The intricacies of and the implications it can have is devastating. That's what I could say. You know, as I mentioned, like I like to make this talk show as crisp and as valuable as possible in the shortest of time. But what can you tell to our viewers? Where can we, you know, as audience, take part, you know, and do something about this? You know, do I go to GEC website and try to look for volunteering roles, or if I'm where can I, you know, make my resources disposable for such a cause that you guys are doing. Where can we do this?
Okay, I mean, we have to realize all of us are living on the same planet. We only got one planet. And if we don't look after it, there's no planet B. There's no option we can go to if we haven't looked after the planet. And the planet is facing a crisis. I've mentioned two of the issues, also about river and water supply. I think everyone here drinks water. And do you know that 97% of the water that we drink in Malaysia comes from rivers? And so when the river is degraded and polluted, or the inland forest is cleared, that ends up in the river, and that ends up in your pipe, in your drinking cup. Our water treatment plants in Malaysia are not enough to take out most of the pollution in the river systems. So the solution is only shut down the treatment plant and no water for everyone. So I think that what people can do, you have to realize degradation of the environment is going to impact your own survival. So you really need to take action. And don't think, oh, other groups, GC will do it for us, someone else will do it for us. Of course, we are doing our work, but we need all of you to work together with us. So we need volunteers, we need the support and contribution. We need you to get engaged. We need you to lobby your MP, your state assemblyman, lobby the politician and others, the decision makers, and promote for a sustainable way of living. You also can take immediate action with your lifestyle. We need to look at circular economy. We need to be recycling. We cannot be living in the throwaway society. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, it's getting even worse. Every day we're getting deliveries in single-use plastic. We're getting this and that. The vast amount of waste we're generating when we think we're living at home, not having impact, actually our impact is increasing. And we have to look at really how we can reuse, recycle, or reduce what we're using. Also, I mean, don't think that only in the coastal mangrove or only in the national park things need to be done. Things can be done in your house. For all of us in Malaysia, I mean, just our compound, what is any rubbish in your longkang, in your house, maybe fall in the longkang around the house, maybe when it rained, it washed into the drain outside. Do you know 100% of those drains in Malaysia, they connect straight to the river. They don't go to somewhere where the water's cleaned up or something. In other countries, yes, stormwater management is there. They clean the stormwater before going to the river. Here in Malaysia, straight into the river. So you say you're not polluting the river, but you wash your curry in your basin at the home. If you're not connected to the sewer system, it goes into the longkang, straight to the river. So look at home, look at your household management, and you will improve things. When we were working to clean up the River Klang in KL, vast amount of the waste was coming from houses, from household, from restaurant, from stalls, from other things. Everything goes in the drain, ends up in the river. So look at those things. Create an action group. Bring your friends together. Look at your neighborhood. Now we're in our neighborhood more. During the COVID, we're seeing the issues. We're having time. Link together. Create a Zoom group with your neighbors, and look, what could we do differently? How can we work together? Can we identify in our neighborhood, our zone, what are the pollution problems? Let's look at that stream. What's going into the stream? What color is the water coming out of the back of the restaurant where we go to tap our food? Are they properly cleaning up? If not, report them, make a case. So many things you can do with your own action. But of course, you can join a bigger movement. GC, over the years, we've had more than 50,000 volunteers get engaged in our programs. You can sign up on our website. You can also make contribution. Contribution can be done in many ways. There are many schemes online, through credit card, through otherwise on the GC website. Many ways to contribute. And for GC, 100% of what's contributed goes direct into action on the ground. We don't take any administration costs and so on, because we want to see things turn into action. And we want to empower groups. We also have a lot of training for river rangers, forest rangers, how to monitor your area, how to set up a group. We've got a lot of modules and so on we can provide to you to help you get going. We can link you up with other groups in your area. We have a small grant scheme called the National River Care Scheme, where we give small grants to community groups to start you off on your journey to do something. Do a gotong royong, do a clean up, do an education program, do some awareness. you can apply for support and guidance from us to do that. But I think ultimately the power is in your hand to make a difference. And you've got to get up out of your seat and make a difference, resolve. Some people say it takes so long to change. It will take years to change. But a change in attitude, a change in action is like this. You decide, you change, and it's immediate. And you just keep the habit going, change what you're doing. Whether that means from today, I will never take another plastic bag from the supermarket. I will bring my own. I will recycle. I will reuse all of those bottles rather than keep on buying bottled products. Many ways we can reduce our footprint. I will carpooling, or I will go to the meeting on Zoom, or I will watch the broadcast on my phone, rather than traveling to that meeting. Now I think we're the expert compared to 18 months ago, where some of us were struggling with the online. Now everything is online. So we can do that. We don't even have to travel now internationally, although it would be nice to do so. But so much we can be more efficient. The airline don't want to hear that, but we have to look at the best for our planet is looking where we can reduce, and we can be more efficient in doing things. We don't have to do the way that we did before just because we did it before. We can change. We have changed. Keep the habits going. Keep the good habits going.
You gave me a whole list of various call to action that I can definitely take back and tell everybody, to our communities, whether if it's from Insight to our community partners. There are various ways, and I think a lot of people will find this very refreshing, especially being in the house, not knowing what else are they contributing to the factor. I mean, the fact that you were saying our drainage system leads back to our rivers is just, again, baffling my mind. And I think the first thing I'll do is to go check my drainage with my neighbors, because I'm part of a neighborhood community here. And I can't thank you enough for inspiring me to do so. So we are out of time, but for those who are watching, we'll make a list for you guys of what you could do, various things with what our guest Faizal Parish has just shared, or what can you act now. So with that, Faizal, thank you so much for being on the show, and we hope to catch up again soon.
Thank you, Zikri. Great to be here. Thank you.
It is my